Our next guest into the Daily Connerton Memorial Company interview chair is the ranking member on the Transportation Committee. Back to the show, State Representative Kathy Kennedy. Representative, good morning.
Good morning, Gary. How are you today?
Oh, are you kidding me? I am peachy. I am peachy. Except there's no pits here. How are you doing? Nice to hear your voice.
Thank you. And thank you for having me on the show this morning. Talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, for sure.
I can imagine.
If I could, I'd like to first offer my serious condolences to Andrew DiDomenico's
the
family.
DOT worker.
Yeah, and especially all of our men and women that do the roadside work for DOT. That just had to have been still probably in their hearts weighs so heavily on them. So I just want to offer that. And of course, we know what happened with Trooper Aaron Pelletier just a few weeks ago. So what's going on? You started the show.
Yeah.
Are our roads obsolete? That's a really great point. I mean, you look at the Merritt Parkway, Wilbercross Parkway, whatever you want to call it. That is just a little small road that was built in the 1800s, maybe. I'm not sure, but it's just a 2-lane, very small roadway.
Oh, yeah, and there's no shoulder. So, in other words, if an ambulance had to get by, good luck to them. But let me ask you this. Do you have any statistics as far as how many drivers there are just here in the state of Connecticut, not including drivers that are traversing through our state from other states? How many drivers we have in Connecticut, and let's relate that to how antiquated our highway system is.
Well, look at every family. Pretty much everyone has a car. That wasn't the case many, many years ago, at least when I was growing up. So You look at a family of 4, that's 4 vehicles. Times all the number of the residents of the state of Connecticut, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of vehicles on the roadways. Every person drives a car.
So I'm right then. I mean, those highways are made from back in the day where there was a family car or maybe mom and dad's car. The fact of the matter is that, and you're absolutely right. Let's take a family of 4 that have teenage kids, let's say, over 16, and they're driving. So now you got 4 cars in the driveway, and more cars out on the highways. So what if the DOT knows this? What are some of the changes that they're making to, I guess, bring themselves up to date to support all these new drivers?
They've posted. We now have from legislation this past year the speed cameras. We have the move over law for emergency vehicles. We have the wrong way driving signage and the signals that have helped. But in the end, it comes down to each and every one of us. We have to be, it's incumbent about each of us to know our surroundings, to slow down. We need to all get to our destination. And we don't need to do that by driving 90 miles an hour on a highway. When I drive to Hartford, you have to think about it. If it takes me 45 minutes from my home to get to Hartford and I have a 10 o'clock meeting, I should be leaving my house, in my opinion, at 8:15.
What town are you in?
I'm in Milford.
Okay.
And so when I drive up and I see people using the shoulder and bouncing all the way across every lane of highway, it's insane. But there's we're very selfish. We're selfish drivers and we're inconsiderate, and we're not thinking about each and every other person.
But Kathy, it's not just speed. There's weaving in and out. There's just it's just blatant reckless driving. Are there any data as far as what's behind this?
I think, I don't know if part of it might be traffic stops and some of the legislation that we've passed, the changes in the police accountability law. In 2019, we had over 500,000 traffic stops. And in 2022, albeit we did have less state police troopers, we had just over 300,000 stops, traffic stops. That's a big drop off.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, our state
fewer police officers.
Lower. Yeah. And like in the towns that I represent alone, in Milford in 2019, we had close to 3,500 motor vehicle stops, and in 2022, 1,800 plus. So that's a big drop off.
What about drunk driving? Are those numbers up or down?
Wrong way driving statistics are they're gut wrenching, quite frankly. The first week of January this year, we had 9 fatalities. Or we had 5 fatalities.
From wrong way drivers?
Yes. It was a driver that got on in Orange and proceeded northbound in the southbound lane of traffic and hit a car head on, killing the 3 passengers in that car, and that driver was killed.
I'm hearing this more and more often. Why? Why? That's not even something that I heard that often 10 years ago. Why? What is it about now that there's all these wrong way drivers?
I think more and more people are driving, quite frankly, impaired and not paying attention. And maybe, I'm not even going to say it's not being familiar with the roadway, but it could be. But it's just the roads haven't changed. Like you said, they've been around forever, so nothing's changed. I think it's just people are inattentive. They're not paying attention. They're on their cell phones. I was driving home the other day from the airport, and I passed cars that were on their phones, literally texting. So that takes at least two hands off the steering wheel, right?
Okay, so it's not just drunk driving or driving impaired. No. It's driving distracted then, too. So they're on their cell phone. I mean, with all the hands-free, devices that there are, and you're finding, your studies have shown that there's more distracted driving then. Yes, I believe so.
And I believe, I'm going to bring up something that, maybe it touches some, but I think since the enactment of the marijuana, the legalization of the commercial marijuana.
Recreational marijuana.
Recreational marijuana. I still think that, I think that's adding to the impairment out
I do too. But I can't get anybody, to substantiate that or validate that.
Is it denial? I don't know. Drive down the roadways and you can smell it everywhere.
No, I know. It almost seems like that's the only time. I remember there was a time when every time you went to a concert, somebody would light up. If you were at a party, in high school at a keg party or something like that, somebody would light one. Now, I go to parties and nobody lights one up. I go to concerts and nobody lights one up. You know where they light one up? It's synonymous with driving. And it used to just be in the city, and it used to just be in the highway. Now it's in suburbs down, side streets. So you're absolutely right. But I also don't believe in coincidences, because right around the same time that they legalized recreational marijuana is really right around the same time that we started to see a lot of these wrong way drivers. Coincidence?
Yeah. Coincidence? No, I just think it's. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It is. And what can we do to combat that?
Well, that's my question. That was going to be my question to you. What do we do then? I mean, can we?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's your time. I want you to speak.
I think that we need to give the tools back to our law enforcement professionals, to our police officers that are on our roadways, our state police officers. If you smell marijuana, why can't we be pulling them over? I know it gets into this political football that goes back and forth. But, I mean, I'm driving some days and I smell it and I'm like, oh, my God.
Because didn't they say it's racial?
Yes, it's profiling. It's considered to be profiling. But, think about it. If you're at a stop sign and the person in the car next to you all have your windows open and that person's smoking marijuana, why can't that be checked? I know we don't have all the tools yet to check their levels of the THC, but I think that's in the works. I believe that maybe Norwich, somewhere down that way, the police are doing a pilot program where they take blood from the person. But now we're teaching our police officers going to have to be phlebotomists now.
Did we put the carriage before the horse? Meaning, did we legalize recreational marijuana before we even had the necessary technology for to combat the driving under I believe so. And even the governor recently in one of his press conferences talked about
marijuana and distracted driving and impaired driving. So we know it's out there. But what are we doing as a legislative body? That's what we have to do, and we have to figure it out so that this tragedies with such as Andrew and other ones, they can't occur again. But I don't know if you saw on the news last night, a DOT truck was struck last night on the highway on I-91.
A DOT truck was struck?
Yeah, it was hit last night. It didn't make as much news fanfare because no one was injured, thankfully, but the car took off. And they found the car abandoned, so it was likely a stolen vehicle.
Goodness.
I don't care. How do you feel about it? It seems like a vicious circle. So
yeah, but look,
stolen vehicle with young adults, and what are we doing to combat that?
All right, listen, stay right there. When we come back, I want to talk to you about these cameras that have been installed more with State Representative Kathy Kennedy right after this. These speed cameras, is it what is it? What was the original purpose for installing them, and what is it resulting in thus far?
So originally, some of the speed cameras were in the work zone areas. That was a pilot program, and essentially the legislation that we passed this past session expanded that to other highways so that people are, if they're going over the speed limit in a work zone, there's fine, and the fines increase substantially. We found during the pilot program that it actually seemed to work. I don't think we have enough data, perhaps, but it did seem to work. It did. So if you were going through and you were over the limit in a speed zone, you'd get sent a ticket, an infraction. And so basically the pilot program was expanded for all. And then, they're on a state roadways. I live right near Route 1, let's say. Route 1, as we know, goes all the way up to Maine, all the way down to Florida. So we have various areas that we can have speed cameras there in other areas. And they're usually put at areas that are known to be areas of incidents of traffic and accidents.
Exit numbers. I've noticed that for the last maybe 2 years, there were 2 exit numbers assigned to an exit. One had the new one, and the other one said old exit, blah. I hear that this year the old exit numbers are going away. As a matter of fact, depending on the highway that you're on, some of them already have started to disappear. What is the progress on that?
So I believe that Route 8 is in the phase right now, and they're changing all of their exit numbers. And that can be a distraction in and of itself, because if you're not familiar with an area and your GPS isn't picking up on an old exit number, that can certainly wreak havoc as to you're traveling, you're not sure what you're doing, and all of a sudden you're inattentive because you're trying to figure out where you are and what exit you're getting off. So I got a update from the DOT just last week, and that work's going to be starting shortly. That'll take a period of time. I think maybe they're going to be done in November, I think it was. Okay. But that does add to a little bit of a distraction when you're driving and you're not sure. We do have some entrance and exit ramps where it's really close when you're getting on. If you turn too soon, you're actually getting on the wrong way. So imagine if you're impaired, now you don't know what you're doing.
What about the move over law? How is that enforced, or is that voluntary?
I don't know how we do enforce that, quite honestly, because it's just presumed, and we passed a little bit stronger legislation this past session that if you need to pull over, you get fined. But if there's not someone on site, there's not always law enforcement, a state trooper or local police enforcement at every single one of those spots. So I'm not sure who's reporting it. Is it the people who are on the call? Usually if it's an accident, there would be EMS responders and or police. But we have to keep in mind, too, we had some staffing issues with our state police. I think we're better than we were. And I'm not putting it on that in any way, but we need to know they can't be everywhere. So they try to target all those hot spots.
So My final question, and I've only got about a minute left.
Sure.
Out of the 2024 legislative session from the Transportation Committee, what is the most significant piece of legislation that came out? Give us the lowdown on that we need to be aware of.
Well, we did the speed cameras. We did some fixes to the Vision Zero that still continues to be worked on through DOT and its agencies. We had the highway road safety, which, when you think about that, is that working?
All right.
As far as work, that's frustrating in itself just to me. We passed something that we thought was good, solid legislation, and here we have, unfortunately, a 26-year-old young man who lost his life.
Yeah, unnecessarily.
And we continue to work on the impaired and distracted driving. I think it's more to say what we didn't pass, and that's to give those tools back to our law enforcement that allows them to do their job, do it more effectively.
I completely agree.
I will keep harping on that, because if our officers can't do their job with the tools that they need, we can pass all the legislation we want, and unfortunately, we're going to still fall behind, in my opinion.
You're 100% right. Hey, listen, thanks for being with us this morning. Keep up the great work. We'll have to get you on more frequent. 'Cause listen, we're all using the highways and byways. State Representative Kathy Kennedy.